Yes.
Good. Right, well, can you hear me as well?
Yes,
Indeed.
Can I suggest members put the go on to mute if they're not speaking while Richard's talking? Thank
good
you.
idea.
Fantastic. Hold on.
Right, in that case, I'll start, and good day to everyone. And the first page is the page of my handout at the Royal Society for 2019. How time flies. And really that is the basis of the presentation this evening, because I gave a PowerPoint presentation live at the Royal Society. Anyway, this is a map, as you can see, and it came out of a travel brochure for Egypt. And I thought, that's just what I need. And so here we are with a rough map of Egypt, started off with Alexandria at the top and ended up, well, our journey will end up at Aswan near the bottom of the screen. And all the major hotels which have post office within them, we shall start in Alexandria and work our way down the screen, so upriver as far as Aswan. And so the first one we come to is Alexandria and the San Stefano Hotel, which was right bang on the coast of the Mediterranean. If you look at the other side of the hotel, there is a bit of a veranda going along, and then there's sand and the sea. It's a wonderful setting, and it's outside. It was outside Alexandria, and a tram stop was outside the front door. Which you can see there, opened in 1902. Compare it with the pitch postcard of the hotel 18 years later. The palm trees have grown, and not only that, the hotel has changed. There's another floor being added, and so the portico at the front entrance has been raised up, and the windows on the ground floor have been widened out. And it's a classical use of how picture postcards can be used in a postal history presentation. I'm really lucky to find this particular item. The San Stefano Hotel closed down after the First World War, and it's a nice hotel. The reason why it made money was because they incorporated a casino inside it. And indeed, over the front door, the front entrance there, it says Ramley Casino. These are the postmarks which the hotel had, and the post office was manned by regular Egyptian postmen who had to apply each year for a job within these post offices inside the hotels. The hotels had, or the post offices inside the hotels had not quite full postal use, but they did have a postmark. They sold postal stationery, and they had registration facilities, and one or two other things as well. And I treat each hotel in a similar fashion. I start with picture postcards, and then I go a detail of the postmarks that were used, and one or two little bit of things like that. So here is, at one time, this was the only registration mark known for the San Stefano Hotel, down there in the left-hand corner, above the word Belgique. It was unique. Sadly, it is no longer unique. Ronnie Pellicom and his friend found another one. And so I really ought to change that, but I'm owning up to it. It's no longer unique, but nevertheless, this is a lovely item. Going into a grand hotel in Blankenberg, which had a casino, as it happens, and it's over French, but it is a pretty franking, isn't it? Then we move up to Cairo, and one of the main hotels there was the Semiramis. It was a luxury hotel, and this chap, Paul Kane, was an author. He wrote novels, and he came from the Isle of Man, and he became so famous in the 1920s, 1930s, that when they opened an airport at Ramsey on the Isle of Man, where this letter was posted, they named the airport after Hall Caine. He came to Egypt, as you can see here. He came twice, and the results of his investigations in Egypt led to one of his books. Some of his books were made into films, so he was well known and had quite a good living from the British, at least. Shepherd's Hotel is probably the most famous in Egypt, and Samuel Shepherd opened the hotel, but by the time that this work was done, he sold it in 1860, and but by the time this was done, he had it long since gone. But it's very interesting that the blue arrow is pointing to an annex to the hotel. And under a magnifying glass, you can see the lettering on the wall there. It says Thomas Cook and Sons. They had their offices right bang next to the Shepherd's Hotel. There's some hotel stationery which Bill will no doubt look at. There's quite a lot of stationery that the hotels produced, and this is quite nice. This shows how, in the early days, the top cover used the ordinary generic Egypt registration cachet, but that was 1898. But 2 years later, it actually had its own registration cachet shown on the lower envelope. I had my thoughts about this one addressed to Mrs. Elizabeth Taylor. At that time, which was 1960, she was married to one of the American singers, and she was just started filming the Cleopatra. That's why she's in there. There's a picture of her there. And I Googled Elizabeth Taylor 1960 in Rome, and sure enough, she was staying at that hotel in Rome for the Rome Olympics. And just to tie things up nicely, the stamp on the bottom left-hand corner was issued, part of a set issued by Egypt for the Olympic Games there. Notice how the fences are both of them are left-handed. The Gezira Palace was another old-fashioned big hotel, and our future King George V stayed there once when he was in the Royal Navy, as one of the officers in the Royal Navy, and he wrote to a colleague, another seaman, on HMS Dreadnought at Malta, and this is his letter. And it's written in George's own handwriting, and those things like that he used to, where the blue arrow comes, he used to put on his envelopes that he'd written his monogram, the G for George. I suppose quite a few industries have magnets. and Egypt had two well-known ones. There was the Charles Baylor and George Nungovich, but between them, they had all the big hotels in Egypt, and eventually, one of them died, and I'd lost my notes, which one it was, and oh yes, George Nungovich had died, and that was before the First World War, but Charles Baylor didn't get his hands onto Nungovich's hotels until into the 1920s, 1925 it says. But they were great guys. There's a bit of competition going on there. It's nice times, I believe. This is the new hotel. It didn't have its own post office, not under that name, but a while later, it became the Continental Hotel, and it expanded and was built upon. And at that time, they were building hotels and merging them together. And if one hotel had a post office, it carried on into the next one where they merged. So I call this the Chameleon Hotel, because it's a Continental Hotel. Then it turned into the Grand Continental, and with its registration cachet. And oh, this is rather an interesting item which was found used too. Someone staying at the Grand Hotel Continental, and this is Carl Huygens, who was running expeditions in Cairo, and this was into it was operating them from Cairo, but they were in the Upper Egypt region, the other side down going towards the Sudan. And he would do the organising of the porters and the transport and the food and all the supplies and things like that. And that's what he was known for. And within the Chameleon came the Savoy Hotel, but it had its own post office before then. And eventually, with a Swiss man, August Wilde. There's a family of the Wildes who came from Switzerland, and they did various things within the hotels within Egypt and the hotels in Switzerland as well. And here's the Savoy Hotel with a registration cachet and a nice furnishing as well. I couldn't resist this particular thing. For those of you who happen to be a car enthusiast may recall the firm called ESC Cars. They were very famous in the 1920s and 30s. And this is addressed to AC Dev's cars in the Thames Ditton, and for the spares department. And I guess that's what they were asking for. And it had a connection with me because that was my father's first new car, bought in about 1932, 1933. Another thing which links the Cairo, in this instance, the Continental Cairo, the Savoy rather, and this is a lovely envelope, airmail from Egypt to London, and it's addressed to Frank Parkinson at Crompton Parkinson, who are a large firm of electrical engineers. Unfortunately, that the envelope has one of the image of one of the biplanes in the bottom left-hand corner. And Parkinson made a lot of money, and he bequeathed a lot of money towards the Leeds University. And the photograph you're looking at on the right-hand side is the Parkinson building at the University of Leeds. It was started before the Second World War, and it was completed after the Second World War. And it's white porcelain stone. It holds a lovely library, a circular library inside, and there is a very nice collection housed, a stamp collection and postal history housed within it, which is given by one of the old members of the. So we move out of Cairo to nearby Giza, where the pyramids and the Sphinx are. I guess I could do a whole evening on the manor house, because it seems to have attracted all sorts of famous people, and not only that, but army people as well. And the I guess the bottom left-hand cover is to a captain in the Royal Army Pay Corps in nearby Abbassia. And the post office was not actually inside the hotel. It was alongside the hotel. And indeed, when we were in Egypt, along with Mike and a few others, we saw where the post office had been. And for the name of the post office, they called it Pyramids. This is taken from the top of one of the pyramids, looking down on the manor house and the various encampments for the soldiers during the First World War. And some of the soldiers went to the top of the pyramids and they fell down. And it didn't do them much good. There's a few deaths from that. And by this time, they had changed the name of in the postmark. That's now the Arabic Ahram, which is the Arabic word for pyramids. And moving up the Nile again, we come to the Luxor Hotel. Within the town of Luxor, and there's a cover with the hotel's postmark and the registration label. And the stamps have a lovely set of stamps there, which show some of the buildings. You can see the pylon, which is just up the road from the hotel, and across the river on the other side, there's these two statues. The big hotel in Luxor is the Winter Palace, and this one, this picture postcard, looks as if the hotel was brand spanking new. If you go through the doorway right in the centre at the bottom, within those doors on either side, there are shops who are selling antiques and picture postcards and anything else that the tourist can be persuaded to buy. It's a lovely hotel. Then we move upriver again, and this time we get as far as we can go. You come to the cataracts, where you can see the basalt and within the river to the right. And here you see the dining room of the hotel. We have actually dined within there, and it's a marvelous sensation. And on the particular evening we were there, we had our steak with brandy poured over it, and we threw a match at it, and it all went up in flames. It was a lovely experience. Of course, we dimmed the lights for the performance. This was 1999 when we were there. And here's the luggage label by Richter of Naples. They produced some of the picture postcards as well. And a stamp, the 10 mil stamp for the highest one down in 1960. Cataract Hotel with one of, and the postcard, there's one of Thomas Cook's steamers, all ready to go back downriver. The blue arrow is pointing to the room that we occupied on that memorable occasion. And unknown to us, it was a centenary of the Cataract Hotel. And we got presented with this little certificate of our stay there. It's a nice little memento. There's one extra thing which I've added to the presentation. It was not shown to the Royal Philharmonic Society because I didn't have the item at that time. But it was written by the Crown Prince Wilhelm. And this is in 1911, or was it 1910? 1911. And he was staying at the Savoy Hotel in Cairo. And he's writing a letter to His Majesty King George at London. The envelope, as you see from the, at the top right-hand corner, it's got the registration cachet for the Savoy Hotel. It's the only time I've ever seen that struck in red. So maybe I can pinch the word unique from the San Stefano Hotel item and put it onto this page. The envelope itself on the right-hand side, in the reverse, on the top part, it's got a big W, so it's that was the monogram for Wilhelm, Prince Wilhelm. And it's been endorsed by Queen Mary, saying she was identifying the envelopes which had come into the royal household. And she wrote in pencil in her own hand on the reverse of this envelope, German Crown Prince. And that was Crown Prince Wilhelm. There was the Kaiser had 4 sons. And when World War I came along, each of those 4 sons went into the army with and their job was to lead the men. That they were not involved in the strategy of war and things like that. They were not generals, but their job was purely to keep the troops on side and fighting for the Reich. And I reckon that within this envelope, there would be a letter saying to King George V, saying, yes, we shall attend your coronation, which was due to take place about 3 months after this letter was posted. And whilst they were in Egypt, the Crown Prince and his wife Cecile took time out to do a bit of tourism. During the war, so Wilhelm went into the army, but the Crown Princess, she was involved in raising funds for the injured soldiers and the distressed people. And that's how it's just quite pretty, and that's what function she did. And I think she also had 1 or 2 children as well. And this is, as this says, it's a caricature taken from the Punch magazine in this country, and it says Little Willie, that's what his nickname was, and he's saying, who said Verdun? And Verdun was one of those battles during the First World War which seemed to go on and on and on with hardly any movement whatsoever going forward or coming back, and yet there was such a loss of life during the time. And he was totally fed up with it. And that's unfortunate time. But it shows how his humour can come into wartime. And that is the end of the presentation.